So imagine this: you're one of the most photographed, adored, and media-savvy celebrities in the world. You've got a list-status elite lawyers, multi-million-dollar brand deals, and a global image so flawlessly curated it practically sells itself. But then suddenly one sworn court filing shatters it all. Because behind the glamour, behind the red carpet smiles and rehearsed interviews, there's a lie. A big one, and it didn't just get caught, it got exposed in the middle of a high-stakes courtroom showdown with national eyes glued to every motion. That's what just happened to Blake Lively, in what is quickly spiraling into the most humiliating moment of her entire career. Blake's attorneys have been busted not for a harmless error, not for a misunderstanding, but for allegedly knowingly lying to a judge, a federal judge, about key evidence, about court-ordered discovery. And now the fallout is staggering. This isn't just a legal blunder, it's a credibility implosion. The court was told under penalty of perjury that all relevant emails and communications had been turned over. But guess what? They weren't, not even close. A private server, a hidden folder, a whistleblower, and a trail of emails that directly contradict Blake's entire narrative, uncovered by the very people she tried to silence. We're talking about conversations that show media manipulation, public relations strategies designed to spin the case in her favor, and explicit efforts to bury evidence before it ever reached the courtroom. The judge is furious, legal experts are stunned. Even Hollywood insiders are panicking, because this goes far beyond just Blake. It's about the machine behind her, the handlers, the fixers, the advisors, who gambled that they could outsmart the legal system and lost badly. And now the judge is ordering hearings, sanctions are on the table. A possible forensic audit of every one of Blake Lively's devices could begin within days. If more lies are uncovered, this case could explode into something bigger than anyone expected. Contempt charges, possible perjury referrals, a total courtroom meltdown, all playing out in front of the world. This is no longer just about Justin Baldoni's accusations. This is about how far Blake Lively's team was willing to go to avoid facing the truth, and how that desperation might be the very thing that destroys her. Get ready, because this isn't a PR crisis, it's a legal reckoning. And for someone who's spent her entire career avoiding scandal, this might just be the one she can't outrun. So here's the thing: when a legal team lies to the court, that's not just bad optics, that's a ticking time bomb. And in this case, Blake Lively's attorneys may have just detonated the whole courtroom. You heard that right. Blake Lively's legal representatives, the very people who've been orchestrating her defense in the high-profile case against Justin Baldoni, have been caught in what's now being called a material misrepresentation to the court, and the fallout, absolutely nuclear. We're not talking about a simple oversight here. We're talking about sworn declarations that now appear to have been, well, to put it bluntly, deliberately misleading, and that changes everything. Let's start with what actually happened. In a sworn filing submitted just 2 weeks ago, Lively's attorneys insisted under penalty of perjury that their client had fully complied with the court's discovery order. According to their statement, all communications relevant to the case had been reviewed and disclosed, particularly any exchanges involving Taylor Swift, Ryan Reynolds, or anyone connected to Wayfarer Studios. But new evidence entered into the docket this week has blown a massive hole in that narrative. A forensic document recovered from a private server, yes, a private server, contained a series of highly relevant emails between Blake and a third-party publicist discussing PR coordination directly related to Baldoni's accusations. These were emails the court specifically asked for, emails that by all accounts Blake's team swore didn't exist. This isn't just a clerical mistake. The court had issued a very clear demand: provide all communication, even informal ones, even drafts relating to media strategy, settlement planning, or personal outreach. Blake's lawyers certified in writing, again under oath, that nothing had been withheld. So now the big question is, how did this email thread magically reappear? How did opposing counsel get access to it, and why was it omitted from the original production? Sources close to Baldoni's legal team say they obtained the emails through a cooperating witness, a former employee of one of Blake Lively's public relations firms, who allegedly had access to a secure Dropbox folder that the attorneys had never disclosed. That whistleblower reportedly reached out to Baldoni's team in frustration, claiming that they had been pressured not to reveal documents that would show coordination between Lively's team and certain media outlets to control the narrative. In other words, this may go far beyond a mistake. It could be obstruction. As expected, the reaction inside the courtroom was explosive. Judge Rivas, who's already earned a reputation for being a no-nonsense enforcer of discovery rules, was visibly furious. In a rare courtroom moment captured in public transcript, she interrupted Lively's lead attorney mid-sentence and asked, point blank, "Are you telling me you signed a certification of completeness While knowing there were still responsive communications unaccounted for, the attorney stammered, and his co-counsel jumped in to say there had been a misunderstanding about the scope of the request, but Judge Rivas didn't buy it, not for a second. Outside the courtroom, it's been nothing short of chaos. Legal analysts have been warning for weeks that Lively's team was cutting corners, trying to stall and delay production of evidence to run out the clock or force a favorable settlement. But now, with documented proof of a lie to the court, they may have opened themselves up to sanctions, fines, or worse, a formal referral to the state bar. That's not hyperbole, this is legal malpractice territory. And here's what's worse, this latest twist seems to confirm what a growing number of observers have suspected, that Blake Lively has been doing everything possible to avoid discovery. From stonewalling requests to allegedly pressuring third parties to stay silent, this case has become less about the underlying claims and more about the integrity of the process. And now that trust is shattered, you have to wonder what this means for the larger Hollywood machine that's been quietly backing her. Sources tell us that major publicists and studio executives are already panicking if more damaging emails are uncovered. This could implicate far more than just Blake Lively. It could expose a whole ecosystem of coordinated influence peddling, media manipulation, and reputation laundering, all under oath and all under scrutiny. Let's be clear, if a male celebrity's legal team had done this, sworn that no emails existed, only for opposing counsel to produce them, the outrage would be immediate. Think about that. There would be headlines screaming from every outlet, cable news segments, and endless think pieces about privilege and corruption. But because Blake Lively has carefully curated a public image of grace, perfection, and victimhood, the media response has been noticeably quieter until now. Social media, though, absolutely on fire. Hashtags like #LivelyLies, #busted by the judge, and #emailgate are trending. Fans are reevaluating their support. Even former defenders are now saying things like, if she had nothing to hide, why lie to the court? It's a fair question, and one that demands a real answer. Legal experts say Judge Rivas may now have no choice but to order a full forensic review of Lively's devices, cloud accounts, and any external hard drives used by her team. That's a nuclear-level move, and one that could reveal everything from deleted messages to metadata tracking when files were accessed, modified, or hidden. If that happens, expect even more shoes to drop, and fast. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's lawyers are preparing a motion to compel sanctions, arguing that Lively's attorneys engaged in deliberate misrepresentation of material fact. They want financial penalties, immediate compliance with all outstanding discovery, and perhaps most damning, they're asking the court to instruct the jury that Blake Lively knowingly withheld evidence. That's courtroom dynamite. A jury instruction like that would be devastating. And here's what's chilling, there's talk behind the scenes that Lively's legal team might try to pin the blame on a junior associate or discovery vendor in a desperate attempt to insulate the core team from consequences, but multiple former associates have come forward anonymously to say this behavior wasn't new, that discovery compliance has always been a battlefield inside Blake's camp, and that every production was filtered through a PR lens before it ever saw the light of day. The result, a case that is now spiraling out of control. And the worst part, it didn't have to be this way. Had Lively's attorneys simply complied with the court's orders from the beginning, they could have controlled the narrative. Instead, by lying, yes, lying, they've handed Baldoni's team the upper hand. On a silver platter, reactions from the Hollywood elite have been mixed. Some stars are staying silent. Others, like a well-known actress who worked with Lively on a recent project, are reportedly distancing themselves behind the scenes, canceling upcoming press appearances, and pulling out of joint interviews. Publicists are scrambling, brands are worried, and the court is watching very closely. Because at the end of the day, no amount of celebrity or charm can erase a lie under oath. The courtroom isn't a red carpet. It doesn't care about your Instagram following. It cares about truth, about justice, and about consequences. And for Blake Lively's legal team, those consequences might be arriving faster than they ever expected. The ripple effect is now tearing through Lively's legal team. Insiders from the firm representing her have quietly begun lawyering up. Yes, some of her own counsel are now seeking independent legal representation in anticipation of potential misconduct hearings. One anonymous partner familiar with the matter told legal media they're in deep trouble. Judges don't tolerate being lied to, especially not in a case with this much media exposure. Someone's head is going to roll. And while some are whispering that the fall guy might be a low-level associate, there are persistent rumors that the decision to withhold those emails came directly from a senior member of the defense team, possibly with Lively's full knowledge. That revelation, if proven true, would be devastating. We're now in the realm of possible perjury, obstruction of justice, and contempt of court, all of which could result in career-ending consequences for her lawyers, and a major credibility collapse for Lively herself. So what does this mean for Justin Baldoni? Well, his legal team is going full steam ahead. One of his attorneys speaking in court this week noted this is not just about hiding emails. It's about systematic deception. We now have reason to believe Ms. Lively and her team have been attempting to manipulate the discovery process from day one. That's a bold accusation and one they clearly believe they can prove. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping element of this unfolding disaster is the suggestion that Lively's legal team may have attempted to scrub metadata from the original emails. Yep, scrub. A newly filed affidavit from a forensic IT expert retained by Baldoni's team alleges that timestamps on the emails appear to have been altered or accessed using anonymization software. If that's true, it suggests there was an active attempt to cover their tracks. Public reaction has shifted dramatically. While Blake Lively was once seen as the Hollywood darling, flawless, charming, and perpetually in control, this revelation has cracked that illusion wide open. Suddenly she's not just the accused. She's the one playing legal games, the one allowing her lawyers to lie, the one who thought she could bend the rules of justice to suit her brand. Tabloids are going wild with it. Headlines scream things like Blake's legal lie and from Hollywood starlet to courtroom scandal. And it's not just tabloid fodder anymore. Mainstream media is now covering the case in earnest. CNN, legal, MSNBC, even the New York Times have weighed in with opinion columns dissecting what this means not just for Lively, but for celebrity justice in general. One viral opinion piece reads, "We have a long tradition of celebrities weaponizing PR firms to control the narrative. But when that fantasy intersects with sworn testimony, it becomes a constitutional crisis in microcosm." It's not hyperbole. Judges across the country are watching this case, not because they care about Blake Lively the celebrity, but because it sets precedent. Can lawyers for the rich and famous get away with lying in court, as long as they smile for the camera and spin a good story? If Judge Rivas allows this to slide, legal experts warn, it will open the floodgates for similar behavior in future high-profile cases. And Blake's own team internally, they're divided. There's talk that one of her co-counsels is threatening to withdraw from the case unless a full internal review is launched. Morale is reportedly at an all-time low, and some legal aides have been instructed not to speak to media under any circumstances. One insider put it this way, "It's a sinking ship. Everyone is in CYA mode." Meanwhile, Baldoni's team is pushing for a public televised sanctions hearing. And they might just get it. If that happens, the entire country will watch Blake's lawyers be grilled under oath about what they knew and when. It would be the legal equivalent of ripping the Band-Aid off and bleeding on live TV. The bigger issue here, though, is trust. Trust in the legal system. Trust in the story that Blake Lively has been selling to the public for years. The narrative that she's the victim, that she's above the fray, that everything against her is a smear. That story now lies in tatters, and as we approach the next phase of this trial, the question isn't just whether she'll win or lose in court. The real question is, will Blake Lively ever recover from this? And now, with everything exposed, the next question becomes, how deep does the deception go? Because let's be honest, if one lie got caught, there's almost certainly more. That's what legal experts across the board are saying. Court filings now suggest Judge Rivas may order a line-by-line audit of Blake Lively's entire discovery production. That includes depositions, messages, call logs, social media DMs, and yes, even internal Slack messages used by her crisis management team. A line-by-line audit is no joke. It's time-consuming, expensive, and brutally invasive. But in this case, it's probably justified. Legal analysts say it's one of the only ways to restore faith in the process and determine just how many documents may have been intentionally withheld or altered. And if more lies surface, the judge may very well consider a contempt ruling or even refer the matter to a federal prosecutor if it appears obstruction occurred across state lines or involved digital tampering. Behind the scenes, PR advisors are reportedly advising Blake to go on the offensive, to give a vulnerable interview, possibly with a sympathetic journalist, and portray herself as misled by her own team. But let's be honest, that defense is wearing thin. We've seen it too many times before. "I didn't know" doesn't work when the judge has receipts. It especially doesn't work when you're the one signing off on sworn affidavits that turned out to be false. The Hollywood elite, once protective of their inner circle, are now eerily silent. Major influencers who once publicly supported Lively have quietly deleted posts. At least one major luxury brand has paused an upcoming campaign with her. Internally, her management team is reportedly in chaos, with several agents considering stepping back from representing her if the situation escalates further. What's striking is how quickly the tide turned. Blake Lively has always been one of Hollywood's most tightly controlled public figures. A former it girl whose image was crafted with surgical precision. Her Instagram curated, her interviews pre-approved, her appearance is always flawlessly timed, but now that illusion is cracked. No amount of perfectly framed selfies can hide this kind of scandal. And it's not just affecting Blake. Ryan Reynolds, her husband, is feeling the heat too. His name wasn't in the emails, but it's impossible to separate his brand from hers, especially when the media sees them as a package deal. And let's not forget Reynolds has his own legal interests to consider. If the court determines he had knowledge of or participated in any of the misrepresentations, he could be subpoenaed. And that would be the media event of the year. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's team is staying silent, at least publicly. But insiders say they're ecstatic. One source close to the case told us, "This is what we've been waiting for. All we had to do was wait for them to trip over their own lies." And that's exactly what happened. This isn't just a win in court, it's a win in the court of public opinion. Which might matter even more. What we're seeing right now is a textbook case of hubris. A celebrity so protected, so adored, so deeply embedded in the Hollywood PR machine that she believed the truth could be managed. That if she just delayed, misdirected, and spun the narrative long enough, people would stop asking questions. But the court doesn't work like that. Discovery doesn't care about your press cycle. Truth doesn't care about your stylist. And now that truth is demanding its due. Judge Rivas has ordered a special hearing in 2 weeks, one that will determine whether Blake's team knowingly misled the court and whether further sanctions are appropriate. Legal insiders say this is a critical moment. If Judge Rivas finds that intentional misrepresentation occurred, she could issue severe consequences, monetary fines, a discovery default judgment, or even a partial summary judgment in favor of Baldoni. Let's pause for a second and explain what summary judgment means in this context. Essentially, it means the judge could decide without even going to trial that certain facts are no longer up for debate. For example, that Blake Lively did attempt to suppress evidence, that her legal team did mislead the court, and that certain damages claimed by Baldoni are therefore presumed valid. That would be catastrophic for her defense, and if that happens, expect appeals, expect chaos, expect every legal outlet to pick this case apart for years. But the cultural impact goes far beyond the courtroom. This is becoming a referendum on celebrity privilege, on how the rich and powerful use influence, money, and media connections to bend the truth and evade accountability. And right now, Blake Lively is the poster child for that system cracking apart. It's no longer just about one lie. It's about the culture of lying, of manipulating public perception, dodging consequences, and relying on charisma and fame to outlast the truth. And in this moment, that culture is finally being called out. And so here we are at the edge of a cliff Blake Lively never expected to be standing on. What started as a legal dispute between two Hollywood names has now turned into a full-blown scandal, not just threatening her case, but threatening her legacy. The courtroom isn't a photo shoot. Judges don't care about Vogue covers. And now Blake is learning the hard way that the spotlight she once controlled can quickly turn into a floodlight, one that exposes everything she tried to keep hidden. This isn't just one mistake. It's not a slip of the tongue or a misfiled document. This is a systemic deception orchestrated by a legal team that thought it could bend the rules, bluff the court, and walk away unscathed. But they didn't count on a whistleblower, they didn't count on tech forensics, and they certainly didn't count on a judge with zero tolerance for celebrity games. The consequences are already snowballing. Media outlets are now treating Blake like a cautionary tale. Brands are backing off. Even longtime supporters are stepping away in silence. In the industry, no one wants to be associated with someone who gets caught lying under oath, because that doesn't just tarnish a reputation, it destroys it. And as for the court, Judge Rivas is just getting started. Sanctions are coming. Investigations are ongoing. And if more digital evidence is unearthed, if there's even a hint that Blake herself knew these emails existed and signed off on that false certification, it could lead to criminal liability for members of her team, maybe even for her. But beyond the courtroom drama and headlines, this moment reveals something deeper, something uglier. About the culture of celebrity itself. About the illusion of perfection that's manufactured, sold, and protected at all costs. Blake Lively built a brand on elegance, on poise, on being above the mess. But now that brand is stained with a lie, a deliberate courtroom-level lie. So where does she go from here? Redemption is possible, but it won't come from spin or silence. It won't come from Instagram apologies or well-crafted press tours. It'll only come from accountability, real, public, uncomfortable accountability. And if Blake Lively can't face that, if her team keeps dodging and deflecting, then the legacy she's spent a lifetime building will collapse, not because of Justin Baldoni's lawsuit, but because she chose to cover up the truth instead of confronting it. This isn't just a bad week for Blake Lively. This is the moment that could define her entire career, and not in the way she planned.